Most parents believe that their child is triggering them, but in reality, it's usually their own unresolved childhood experiences that are resurfacing. If you're planning to have a baby, then this is one of the most important things to explore and look into. Hi there, I'm Arohi, and I work with couples emotionally and relationally to prepare for parenthood so that we can have more aligned families and break a little bit of that generational transference. Before we dive into this video, I just want to give a disclaimer that this video is not a replacement for therapy. It is an informational video. It's meant to educate you. And while towards the end of this video, when we kind of have some journaling prompts, if you realize that there's something coming up, it's more of an invitation to reflect and explore that. Whether you do that therapeutically, whether you do that with a trusted friend, whether you do that through meditation or journaling, however you would like to do that. But please do not take this video as a replacement for a professional therapeutic session. Okay, let's dive into it. So let's talk a little about what are triggers, right? So a trigger is not the event. Let's firstly just put that out there. A lot of the times I hear parents saying that she did this and I got triggered, or he did that and I got triggered. But a trigger is really not about the behavior. I'll give you an example. My daughter slapped me. That triggered me and made me upset, or it made me angry. Or my son smashed a glass bowl and that really tipped me off. A trigger is not about the event. It is about the meaning that our nervous system gives to that event. So for example, when I'm slapped by my daughter, my body feels disrespected. That is what my nervous system perceives that behavior as, that she's disrespecting me. And that's what's really putting me off. When I see my son smash a glass bowl, my body is saying that, oh my God, he's so ungrateful. And that's what's making me so upset. So we need to start slowly training ourselves to differentiate between the behavior and the meaning that we associate with the behavior. And a little example of how our childhood plays a role in this is, say if as a child, I was never allowed to cry or show big emotions. So now when I see my child showing big emotions or crying, I feel really uncomfortable. And it's not because he's having big emotions or because she's screaming, but it's because I don't know how to deal with this, because growing up, I was told, my nervous system was trained that this behavior is not all right. This behavior is not acceptable. So now when I have to deal with this behavior, I'm feeling extremely uncomfortable. So why does this matter before conception? Well, like we've already discussed, that parenthood is not creating any new wounds. It's only exposing the wounds that you already carry in your body. And what that essentially means is, before you start trying for a child, you should really ask yourself that, what really dysregulates me? What tips me off the edge? I think a great activity to do is for your partner and you to go somewhere. Go to a busy place where there's a lot of children, maybe like a crowded mall, maybe a park, a restaurant on a weekend, and really see, what's happening to these children. Often, you're out for dinner and you see a child doing something, and you're just like, oh my God, can that child stop crying? You're in an airplane and a kid is screeching at the top of their lungs, and you're just like, I can't deal with this. Why can't their parents do something? So it's about noticing that. What are those things that really dysregulate you? And that's not to blame yourself. It's not to make yourself feel ashamed that it's dysregulating you, but it's to build awareness. Because if you know that, all right, a child screaming loudly really just makes me upset, then you know that you need to be more aware of that when you have your own child. So maybe when your own child one day is screaming, you're not coming from your own wounds, but you're meeting them as a healthy, regulated adult. So we're going to have 5 reflection prompts. If you're still along in this video, you can maybe, jot these down. And I, in fact, suggest it's always better to do these separately and then to discuss with your partner. That tends to work out the best, because that way you've got an opportunity to really introspect and think about your own childhood. And then you sit with your partner and you guys share and get aligned. So the first prompt is that, which behaviors in a child irritate you the most? So the behaviors that you see and you just feel like, no way. Or, another good example is sometimes you see a child and you're like, this is one thing my child will never do. I will never let my kid do this. So what is that behavior that's bringing out such strong emotions in you, right? So really try to think of that and write that down. The second prompt is that when you were a child, how were big emotions handled? Were you allowed to have big emotions? Were you scolded for big emotions? Did your parents get really nervous and stressed when there were big emotions? What happened when there were big emotions in your childhood? And the last question to ask yourself is, what did love feel in your childhood? So if you were to close your eyes and transport yourself back to your childhood, think of when you felt really loved, and what was that? And the reason to really think about this question is because sometimes what we think was love may not have been love, right? So an example I can give is a parent rewarding you with presents every time you get 100 on a test may have made you feel loved as a child. But today, in retrospect, you may think that, so if I didn't get 100, was I still rewarded? Was I still loved? Or was I scolded? So that's something to question as well. It's really difficult to break these generational patterns because of two main reasons, I feel. The first is that it takes a lot to do this introspection. It's challenging and difficult. And the second is because a lot of us still have relationships with these parents. So it's not to kind of blame our parents for how they raised us or to get angry or upset with them, but it's more for your knowledge and your self-reflection that, okay, this is what they did. That's okay. They did the best they could, but this is my takeaway and this is what I'm going to do, or this is what I'm going to change. So if you want to really break generational patterns, that begins with self-observation, not self-judgment. So we're not looking at being harsh on ourselves and judging ourselves, but we're just looking at observing and becoming aware. Now, the last thing I want to leave you with is that your future child is not going to trigger you, but they're going to really show you the mirror. And we don't always want to see the mirror, right? There are days where we just want to feel, especially when you're really in the midst of parenthood. You're tired, you're sleep deprived, you've not gotten a moment alone with your partner. And in the midst of all of this, your child is showing you the mirror, and it can be really challenging to look at it. Which is why putting in this work now will really help you in the future, because you'll be a little more self-aware down the line that, okay, these 5 things I've established and I know that they trigger me. And this is not to say that you won't have any triggers in the future. You totally will, right? There may be new things. You may not have even known that, oh, this upsets me or this triggers me. And that's an evolving journey that you're going to be on, right? So it's consistently going to happen. Every stage of life, your child is going to show you a mirror and you're going to learn something new. And I think that's kind of the gist of conscious parenting, right? You're constantly evolving. So that's all for today's video. If you would like to, intentionally go about having a baby, I would love it if you subscribed and join this journey. And I really hope that you have some deep moments of self-reflection this week. Thank you.